Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today I have on the god of Hellfire, Arthur Brown. Now, before I even say anything, Arthur, I'm going to say the word I hate, and a phrase I hate is I do not like the phrase one hit wonder. And because people know like a couple songs of yours, you're one of the artists they do that to, and it makes me crazy. You have so many albums out and so many different albums. You're like, sometimes I'd be like, you're progressive rock, you're this kind of rock, you're this rock, you're theater rock. You are a very, very progressive and creative artist. And you are, I can't even tell you how many albums you've done. The list is endless. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. You're so creative and so out of the box, like probably like 100% in the best way. And especially like nowadays, you can kind of be like, oh, well, everyone tries to be different just to be different. When you first came out, it wasn't like that. You had the voice of the deep, rich voice of Tom Jones, but then you had the opera voice of Queen, and you eclectically you do all different types of music. Where's that well coming from inside of you? What's churning your brain?
Well, I think just watching the world as it goes by and watching what happens inside and seeing what happens in this world to all the people. And also, it's kind of, if you just stand in front of say a cliff, there's a response you have to it. And so the responses are, in my case, I like to make sounds and to be involved with the theater of life by mirroring the theatricality of everything.
I can see that, yes. What's great is when you had your hit come out, what the public thought was a hit at the time. That's the problem, is what are hits and what the mood is at the moment. Your music hasn't changed as a creative force. You've changed in doing different things to learn and grow, and as an artist. When the world felt it was a hit, they liked your song at that one time to make a commercial hit. You didn't fall into the trap of having to go back and do that. Your albums pushed more boundaries and more boundaries each time.
Yeah, I did try to do that. Occasionally you get, the rock and roll star is just one of the images in this world. So why shouldn't I do that? And then for me, that was never a thing that really kind of allowed what people respond to in me to speak. So I just did what I could do that they liked to hear, or that they would feel was offering them something to the extent they wanted to hear
it. And as you get older, I mean, obviously, a lot of the peers that everyone loves was always reaching out to you. You and Who and you Robert Plant, like all different artists have always reached out to you because they've appreciated you as you are. The thicky music industry has always been kind of goofy, and it's never been something you've ever followed that path. In fact, you've probably seen the path and gone the opposite way because that's not who you are. You're a leader, not a follower. I can see, even looking back, like a lot of things you've done with your theatrics visually. A million artists have copied and still continue to copy today, from your painting to the flaming hat. I still see that Lollapalooza. By the way, that shirt is on his website. He has some great merch on his website. You got to check it out. The link will be at the bottom of this, so people can go see his all his stuff, his dates, everything. We'll do that after. But that shirt I love. I noticed that earlier. It's really great. So marching against a drum in the 70s and then in the 80s, and always being out of fashion, but never stopping. The muse in you had, at some point, did you ever get frustrated, feel like, maybe I should just do this? Like the old one for the record company, one for me type of deal. It doesn't feel like you ever have. I mean, was that ever a battle you had to deal with?
Well, they're always kind of precious, and depending what size of record company you're with at a particular time, they do or do not have the financial ability to get your idea and then make it work. And so, to that degree, you might have to alter what you were going to do. For instance, in '75, I was making an album with Stevie Wonder, and the record company suddenly that I was with, which wasn't one of the huge companies, pulled all its artists away from Tamla, and that proved to be the end of that project. And so you go in a different direction.
Vocally, are you doing any exercises like to this point, or do you just sing a lot? Because your range and your strength, your voice is so strong. And as you get older, it doesn't always do that for everybody. There's some singers, even back we use a reference from the '70s, that their vocal range, even if they took care of it, is not the same. Your voice. I just heard a quarantine thing you did. You did a shriek that could peel the leather off a baseball. I was like, whoa. You know what I mean? Rock is not dead. I mean, so that's fantastic. Is it just natural, or do you work at that?
Well, there is, as you get older, the body has certain changes that it goes through, and some things are not as easy as they used to. But a lot of that is just imagination as well. What has been supposedly written by experts as well, when you do get, oh, you can't do this anymore and you shouldn't do it. I think if you actually kind of listen to your body and what it is flourishing through and what makes it not like being alive in the way that it was, then there's a much more ongoing situation. I did a lot of different kinds of exercises and disciplines across the years, and that helped my body stay in reasonable shape, and even if it's what looks like a very simple thing, like going on walks through a chosen environment. I mean, the mind, to stay well, has to have a certain amount of stimulations from different inputs. And when you're, say, walking through a countryside scene, there are so many different things, and they change with each change in the weather. And if you're awake to that, then that helps to tune up the mind. As you're walking, the body, as the leg comes forward, the spine rotates a bit, and all of that kind of gives a massage to and keeps flowing the central nervous system. And then there's exercises, obviously, you can do for the core. If you're climbing fences and then you've got a certain different, a change to that.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things that sound possibly quirky that I like to do. For instance, you can do all your sawing with a mechanical saw. There are some things that it's maybe a good thing to do, use a saw, a mechanical one, but the rest, why go to a gym to get those muscles going? If you use the tools, and just like pliers, you've got your gripping things and turning in different arcs, and so that keeps the body fit. You can make your own sort of gym program out of daily exercises and tasks.
Build houses on the side, right? Gotta go work out and you build a house. No, it seems.
I've got a friend like that in Texas that we sometimes work with in his studio, and We always know when he's on holiday because he's building another house.
Probably feels good. And I say it because you are in good shape, and you have been, you know, it's changed what people do for musicians play out, in the past. Like, remember, like being like 50 years old used to be old and playing out. It's not like that anymore.
No,
It's a whole new thing. And a lot of people, I mean, geez, I remember when I was young, when my grandfather, I'm 50 now, when my grandfather was my age and I was younger, I thought he was the oldest person in the world. But physically, it was like he was the oldest person. You know what I'm saying? I'm not
yeah,
the same shape. I'm actually probably in better shape, but I'm not in great shape by any means. The point is, it's changed so much, and it's light years ahead now. And you're performing at, you're doing these huge festivals and huge concerts, and it's the energy level of a 20-year-old. So whatever you're doing is working, and I think it's important that people start to incorporate changes in their bodies because it's possible.
I think so. And if you find, say, for instance, you're dancing, if you've got a form of dance that you're involved with, which you've been doing since you were young, your muscles they move in that way.
Mhm.
And so as long as you keep doing it, you're probably going to be able to do it uh, way into the 80s, 90s.
You are quite a dancer yourself, and quite a very physical performer. What?
Yeah, I can't. There are things that I can't do now that I used to be able to. Partly because I don't really want to, anymore, and partly because if say like for our latest show, the multimedia show, it's called
Mhm.
A Human Perspective,
Yeah.
and the movements there are some of them are sort of make use of some of the uh, positions and styles that I used to use, but we're also moving into looking at different uh, cultures and realizing that underneath all of them they have this kind of whatever is their form of a ritual movement which
Hmm.
speaks to a different part of the listener or the viewer, and so we're creating movements like that, and so they have a different kind of movement to them. It's rather like if you have semaphore, where the shapes are very simple, A, you know,
Yeah.
C, and and make use of what the what the movement is that carries the feeling behind that particular section of the act. And so they demand a different kind of movement, and also the kind of textures in the materials of the costumes have an equivalent in the actual body movement, because if you've got a material that stretches out as you open your arm,
Hmm.
the folds of the material, if they're moving in time with the music, have a certain quality about them, and then you move that through different musical contexts in the act, and there's a different use of that. And my partner and manager Claire Waller has been very much a part in developing um, those attitudes and those capacities that we use in that.
It's fantastic. So let's actually talk about, so that show you're preparing now, because it's going to be, well, COVID kind of messed everything up for everybody, but that show's going to be 2022. You're going to be really doing a lot of that, right?
Yes, yes, indeed.
And you've also been doing some work in the studio. Can you share about some of that stuff that you're working on, or a little
Oh
bit,
my,
or?
there's several different projects.
Okay.
There's the like you said the charity ones for
Mhm.
the COVID, and for raising money for um, musicians,
Which is
and
great.
so that has been done through the kind of Zoom
Like Zoom,
technique,
yeah.
where you know, and it was certainly the first time that we've been using the Pro Tools that was set, you know, came into our, and then somebody else coming in from a different country and operating the instrumental section, and then
That's
someone else recording the voice and all of that. So that was quite an interesting um, project, and it sort of blossomed in the same form, but for another
mhm.
thing, which was um, Claire was listening to the internet, some channel, and said, "Oh, listen to this," and we listened to it, and it was a band from Peru, Flor de Loto, and they have an indigenous flute player who's just marvelous, and it turned out that he's the sort of senior flute player for that community in Peru, and so we ended up uh, doing a track with
Oh,
this
cool.
band, and it's being produced by the Roy G, who did a lot with Bruce Dickinson of
Yep.
Iron Maiden. His
Which you
first.
did the spoken word on his uh album. Escaped me the album you did. It was a Chemical Wedding, I think. Right?
Yes, yes, the
You're
chemical.
everywhere. You've been everywhere in my life. Even if I'm not listening to you, I'm still listening to you somewhere else.
Yeah, you got to keep on your toes.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and so they're doing very well now in Peru. I think they're with their own music. They're number one, so that's very nice. Um, and that track we did
Mhm.
um, actually was when we came to do it in the end. Uh, it brought the kind of approach that I had to adopt for that. Is now the one we will not for that song. It's already done,
Mhm.
but for the new album I'm doing in next year, uh, that's where that will be based, and I don't really want
Wow.
to say much about it.
No. That's fine. I don't expect
Uh,
you to. I just want to share what you have going on because you embrace everything and you bring everything to like music from all around the world, all kinds of culture. And you've always been doing that. You know, and the world's not always been like that. And that's why I like talking about it with you because it's so much, you know, you have a wealth that, you know, no one's aware of.
well, I think, yeah, as you say, because people have been perhaps inclined to watch more and look at things and
Yeah.
turn inwards a bit and forget like, oh well, I only like this. Oh, what is that? Um, the capacity to look at different forms of music has it's a paradoxical thing because on the one hand it's grown,
Hmm.
and on the other hand you've got all of these tiny niche markets where people only listen to that. But I think
Yeah.
generally it's been a wider appreciation of different forms of music.
There is a lot more avenues and which supports more of an artist like you because you don't have the same channels. Nothing can stop you now. It's just getting it to the people if they can get their heads off of oh, you said the same type of thing, you know. I mean, there's so
Yeah,
much. Like I recommend people go back and listen to your Kingdom Come 3 albums. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I like all your stuff. But I mean, that right there says so much. You know what I mean? Like so good.
Yeah, that
The
was
other,
kind of a 3-year project, if you like,
mhm,
because we had a 3-year contract from um, Universal or German Polydor, as it was then. Um, and we just went through many changes as we started with people who didn't know each other, and then gradually you get to know each other, and so it all develops and changes, and the music changes, and the kind of things the approaches you have to things change. And so yeah, that's just come out as a box set,
yep.
including the origins of the music, uh, which in that case was doing jams and then pulling things out of the jams, um, and some of them would normally you would have rejected outright,
Mhm.
but you just think, well, okay, that's what we did. So what can we do with that? Oh, and it was one of those things where I'd come back from America, and it was a time of should we say, a bit of disenchantment with the way that all the new visions of life and society were being shut down by the more conservative political
Mhm.
forces in the world, and and
Well
so
said. Well said.
you have to choose your words when you get to
Right. Exactly. You said it well.
that. um, but I'd like wanted to also retain kind of, well, there's certain things in there that
Mhm.
whether or not there's this movement, I feel are genuine responses to the human lot, Um, so it became what we did was we became at once ultra conservative in that we booked a rehearsal studio from 10 till 6 and treated it
Mhm.
like a job for some months to write the piece and get to know each other. Um, the first piece was Galactic Zoo Dossier, uh, which is sort of like, if you look at the whole human experience, the whole way we live as a kind of zoo. Um, and also looking at it, okay, well, if we're going to get into a music that is going to be plastic enough to deal with uh, things that are in the psyche generally, and our political things were falling away,
Mhm.
uh, aspirations were suddenly submerging under lots of money, and all kinds of things were going on, and there was presidents being assassinated
Yeah.
left, right, and center. I mean, and great leaders and everything. Then, how could we have a music that might be broad enough to take that and have some contact with it? And so it felt to me like, well, okay, we have to do some kind of make some exercises for the band to be able to be flexible, and so we took all these exercises, and some of them came to fruition on particular numbers. Like there's one number where we decided that well, if you've got an instrument like the guitar,
Mhm.
normally you play it according to the scales, and they have we have arranged them in a way that everybody can recognize,
Yep.
and we have built structures
And
musically.
rules, and then
Yeah,
you break the
and
rules.
so
Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense.
yes, and so we thought, right, okay, let's make our own rules. Let's take the keyboard or the fret of the guitar with the
Mhm.
strings. Let's take a little triangle and move it up and down the strings and say that, okay, only the ones that come inside this triangle are going to be used in this number. And so you get a different relation between all the parts of the piece and the notes in it, because it's not doing the normal pattern rules. And so we did exercises like that, and the ability for particular instruments to respond to each other um, by playing games. You know, it's almost like you know, Arcala says that's a children's game. But if you do that musically, and then you have another one where that's like, okay, I here's a phrase, bong bang ding dong dong, and then the keyboard player picks it up, guitar player fits in, picks up the same phrase, and then they stop and they all play the same phrase at the same time, but one comes out slightly differently, and that, you know, you shift this and you keep going round and round until you kind of lose the idea that there is a phrase. It's just something that has its own life, and it becomes a very flexible relationship between, I might go then da da, and the keyboard goes da 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 da, boom boom bass. So everybody's making up these patterns, and it becomes a flexible language between the musicians. And so in some of the pieces, there is a very one note type following the other between different instruments, and it moves, I think, somewhat in the way that on the one hand, sort of classical music might move, although it doesn't necessarily sound classical.
No, but it's like saying that Bob Dylan influenced punk rock.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? And you're like, no, because he went against what he did. He said what he did. He sang in a way that wasn't normal. Then he went and got electric, which went against his whole fan base. You don't get any more punk than any of that. So, you know, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And so, then it allowed us to paint a kind of overall dynamic.
It's very smart. It's very smart. It makes for an interesting way to listen to it. And the music is great. And, I don't know, what's the phrase? You probably heard that's one, space rock. I like that one. It's called space rock. When they refer to those. I love that one. That sounds fun. It's good. It's good, but it's a fun name. When people would work with you, I imagine even by now you're a lot more known. But even back at the time, did you have a hard time finding artists that will either say want to work with the idea of the celebrity of you had a hit single, or they knew who you were as a creative force that's not going to do everything, chorus, verse, chorus? Was there a challenge or to get the crew in to work like that? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, there was. You know, obviously, if you were a jazz musician, you might have a feel for that, improvising and structures and things. But in those days, it wasn't so much a part of the rock pantheon, you know.
No.
And so it was a question of finding people who had the same, not exactly.
No, but like the sensibilities, like the sensibilities of the freeform, you know, the adventure. It's like a musical adventure.
Yes, and so you could talk to, like, for instance, for where I was using the jam as the source of the music, and of certain musicians afterwards would say, well, no, I'm not. I know I did that, but I'm not. That's not where I want to go, and that's fine, you know, because it helps us not waste time and helps them not waste time. But it was a way of looking at, if you were not just playing how you feel, but playing with a vision of whatever it was. It might be like say on one of the jams, it was a journey from the countryside to the town, and all the different way you might feel. And the different things you needed in each. And of course, that was just a background to, okay, now
Like a soundscape to your story.
Yeah, yeah, and without starting with a particular form,
Hmm.
just starting say, right, this is what we're doing, off we go.
It
And
seems
so,
like it was the biggest challenge, especially back in the '70s, where it was either dun, dun, dun. I mean, you're the artist who I love, but also the only artist I can think of who is just as known for being open would be like Zappa. You know, you need to
ah,
be open when you come into the project. You know, not that you guys sound the same, but once again, Frank was the same way. There's so much music in something. This could be music. You know, it's what you do with music and what you do with it. You know, but you got to be open. You know,
yes,
and you can't be coming in for the celebrity because you know we're gonna write something. We're gonna create something. We're not gonna redo something that's already been done. You're gonna create. So roll up your
yeah,
sleeves and the world doesn't like that at the time. You know, the record labels were not going to bank that. The record banks were going to pay for that kind of stuff, and they want. I want Fire number 1, 2, and 3 every album from you. I want can you do this? You're like, no, I did that. I need to do something different now. If I do it again, it's because I want to, but I'm on to something new. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, and
Uh,
that of course was evidenced in the career of people like Hendrix, for one,
yeah.
um, who would say, I remember he said, well, uh, my idea of heaven is to sit and listen to Buddy Guy play. And of course, Buddy has all like high speed playing and
Yeah.
different points of beginning and stuff. But of course, Hendrix was the one who, if he was influenced by that, also brought in all the electronic instruments. And of course, so that means we have to be awake to what is the current state of technology for doing music, and what does that mean to music? What is more
I,
possible?
I'd put a caveat on that. What I thought was really fun is how you said that you started doing Zoom for recording. What a lot of people don't realize is you were one of the earlier proponents for using a drum machine. So you've always been on the cusp or the cutting edge of technology in music. So you're still doing it by recording. You're not behind because this Zoom recording has been a thing this year. So you're right there once again. You're still doing it. you know.
Yeah, yeah, and also we had other ideas in that band that we could perhaps take technology from um, brain surveying and use that to create music. And now, uh, unfortunately, the techno we want, for instance, we thought, well, if the Pope comes to England and we could just get him to stand on stage and we put this thing on him and music comes out of his head without even he's not even thinking musically,
Yeah.
but the process of thinking itself is music. And so the technology wasn't subtle enough. Now it's pretty much on there. And
Yeah, you
so,
guys can draw a picture and present it to the machine, and the machine's gonna compose it for you, which is
yes,
pretty neat.
yes,
And
and
that's on
that
a basic linear thought. That's not even talking, expounding it on what you're talking. That's just crazy.
well, and also that means that our show, the multimedia thing, becomes a different creature as well, because you have a note. There's an immediate visual response, and like say in that, going back to the brain thing,
Hmm.
it also is linked with the visual side. So when you are watching the brain, you're seeing the responses and their colors moving, and rainbows and things that are coming out of the brain in its normal manner of functioning. And then you can see things in it that are repeated patterns that maybe, well, that seems so useful. That
Yeah.
one. Why have I got that in there? And it opens up, and then you have the capacity. I suddenly realized that each note of a solo if you like, is a choice.
Mhm.
On some level of your mind, you're making these choices. And
Right.
so that's why solos are, between great artists, there's a lot of difference in the way they will come at a particular melody, for instance.
Mhm.
And so we decided to concentrate on the area of the brain that makes decisions as far as getting a signal
Yeah.
pattern coming
Like
out.
the frontal lobe.
Yeah, yeah, and deeper inside the middle
Yeah.
there's a place, and so you then focus it a little different. The machine that's receiving so many immediate sounds. If you've got a brain machine, the
Yeah.
potential sounds that you've got in there are just ginormous, and so you have to narrow them down to a focus that can be, an immediate image. And the visual image that comes out is quite astonishing as well,
Oh, is
and
it?
and responds immediately. Immediately you move the mind into a different way of thinking. And so now you can do that on stage between the man or woman who is operating the visual technology, which now is just unbelievable. It is like painting.
Right.
And it, like you say, can take a very simple thing like speech or whatever,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's a visual pattern. And then there are choices you can make with that, and that's where the person operating that is an artist in their own right. They're taking these possibilities, going, no, I'm having this right now. And it's like the same process, if you like, as making a solo on a guitar or a keyboard.
That is so like meta on so many levels. You're like not like you're like the, the conscious of the mind. Like you're like it's like the soundtrack. You're like the soundtrack for the human conscious is what you are of what you create on some level is what it sounds like to me. I guess I've always felt that on some level, but I never really thought about it until we've had this discussion where not just the human conscious of being like I'm awake conscious. You know what I'm saying? On a level, I'm conscious. I'm hearing. I'm seeing. I'm smelling. I'm aware of everything, and these are all these sets that I have to think, and they all come together. And you're taking that, and you in your career, not just now, but is like you're like the soundtrack for it. You have embraced it, and been like the cheerleader for it in a way,
Yes, yes.
without the pom poms. Or maybe you have. Maybe I missed that stage show. Maybe that's in the next one. But seriously, I mean, you really have you have done that in such a great way. And I just wanted to add that with this, and people listening that aren't familiar with this, first off, you got to come in an open mind because maybe you might not like everything. Maybe your brain isn't used to it. Maybe you're used to the radio edit of the 2/4, 2/4, 2/4, everything, the rock and roll happy face sandwich production. So your brains might be used to it. So you need to take a breath and like wine or something, and and listen to it in a way where you're open to the sounds. And it's not just making sounds because this concepts sound great. They but but it also makes good music. You also self-edit in a way where it's still palatable for everybody. Because people can do stuff like this and they have, and you're like, whoa, not everything's music. But
Yes,
that's also not you. You do have self-editing in a way where you compose it.
yes. And I think, if just on
No.
parallel, a parallel level,
Yeah.
uh, I think it was Kanye West did a gospel album recently.
Mhm.
And when you look at it, the way he has taken that gospel thing and feeds into it stuff that you would never imagine could be put together as one piece of music.
Yep.
And it succeeds because he did do that stepping back or whatever process is you were talking about,
Yeah.
so as to not get in the way and go, oh no, I got no. It was like, oh look, this is coming. I'm going to, and with this other feeling for the background of the gospel things. So I think you're right. But we for instance in one of the sessions
Mhm.
And I think this might be the first time that it's been done. Once we were recording with the brain machine,
Mhm.
and
This is so awesome.
the music, the thing stopped. We stopped, but then we suddenly realized that, well, the, the the music is changing of its own accord.
What?
And then we realized that we hadn't turned off my brain machine. We're all with our our respective instrument, and so we realized then, oh, well, I'm not making any choices consciously because I was thinking about the board here,
Yeah.
but it's still being made on a certain level of the mind, and that is changing the music. And so
That's like a whole other level right there. That is literally another 40 years of thinking and playing around with that idea on a level of you have your conscious and your subconscious, and they don't always work together at the same time. You know what I mean? And then you add that to it, and you're like, wait, what? You know?
yeah, yeah. And I
I'm
think
like,
that, that's
Arthur,
one.
you are a rabbit hole of musical ideas. I don't even know how you get to the end of one journey. They just get better and better, you know?
Well,
That
I
is
think
fun.
one strange journey is that, well, a couple. I'm doing the current album I'm doing, which will be, I think, the next album out, is with a company that works in Germany, United
Mhm.
Kingdom, and America, and worldwide. But it's got three epicenters, if you like, and they're called Prophecy, and they
Very
have
telling.
another, yeah.
Feels like an episode of the Black Mirror.
ah, yeah, yeah, and they have a sort of company that works in tandem with the Magnetic Eye, and that is a company who like to let the artist be involved in all the procedures of
Mhm.
when you're bringing out a piece of work, and they
Yeah.
they like to come along with a beautiful, beautifully conceived and executed book with the record.
But when you're ready for that, you can come back and we can break it down so you don't have to spill any secrets because you're always going to be welcome here to talk
Oh,
about your stuff.
oh,
Okay.
lovely, lovely.
I would love to because you are a thinker. And I'm going to tell you, with music, it's like there can be a couple times. Music can be like food. Sometimes you just want to have Jello. You just want to enjoy it. It's just simple and plain of vanilla ice cream, right? It's great. It's
Yeah,
guilty. But sometimes you want to have a layered, crazy thing, and you're more of a very creative. You know what I'm saying? So, but there's room for all of it. You know.
yes.
But you're more of a specialty that isn't. You're a dish that's not made very often. It's so thought out on so many levels that it's. You know, we could talk for hours and. You know, we'll do a little sampling tonight. I want you to come back a lot because I want to keep supporting this stuff. This is we need all along the journey with you. You know,
Oh,
I,
lovely, lovely. Yeah,
I
and
think yeah,
there's
you're
a lot more to come, evidently.
I say there's a lot. I don't want to like have you slide anything as we get in these talks because I know, and you're such a smart man. And I think when I see these interviews with people and they always go back to the same. I mean, yeah, guess what? The same. I'm the god of Hellfire is cool as hell, and it's always been cool as hell because it's been fun. I don't know. You hit a point. It's fun. You mean it's just like any other thing. But my God, you just did so much more than that. I mean, Gypsy Voodoo or Zim Zam Zim, that is just as relevant as what you did in '68 and just as strong. Like maybe even stronger. I'll be honest with you. I think Zim Zam is just like at this point, this is my favorite one right now. Well, maybe
Fantastic.
Journey, maybe Journey from Kingdom Come. I'm gonna be honest with you. It depends. Where I'm at in the headspace. You know what I mean for that one. So you've
Yeah,
got you know some great stuff, and maybe at some point we'll come back. We'll do some deep dives into some of that stuff too. Um,
yeah. I think that that was partly because I got in terms of, say, Zimzam, some younger musicians,
mhm.
but who had the same wish in terms of what do we want to make if we make an album together, and so that brought a lot of different textures to it than I had been accustomed to, and that was great because you suddenly
It's
go,
exciting, right?
oh,
You're like, it's like falling in love again, right? It's like literally
yeah,
falling in love again. And how exciting in life is not much more exciting than falling in love with music again and again and again, you know?
absolutely, absolutely, and reimagining the relation between, say, an artist and the record company and the business and the media and everything. Um, but for instance, with our setup, my manager Claire
Mhm.
is also the creative director, and so the management becomes part of the whole.
And also, I spoke with her a little bit, a sweetheart, also, a very kind
Oh
person
yeah,
too. She's a very
oh yeah,
all
it's
pluses.
lovely. I'm very fortunate
You
uh,
are.
to be that we're partners as well in life as well as business. You know,
It makes sense.
um, I should at this point also mention
Yeah.
a kind of adventurous horror record that I'm making with and this is with the sort of, it's part of the whole picture of recording, which includes
Mhm.
prophecy and everything, and they're well aware of this
Yep.
album that is a horror album with Cleopatra Records from
Yep.
Los Angeles, and they have a particular way of doing things that is kind of different again to uh, to the normal way of making a record. If you're starting with the artist's vision
Hmm.
and just following the artist's vision. Now, if you take a business person who's also got an artistic vision,
Okay.
then they may come at it a different way. And so they may say, well, uh, as far as I'm concerned, a band is whoever I think is an absolutely brilliant
Yep.
person and and fits with this vision that's going to be surrounding the voice,
Hmm.
and it's going to be part of a music that is created, and
Yeah.
so that's how the
That's how they do with things there.
yeah, and that's
They've done some good things like that. They have done some good projects like that. They've had a pretty good ear so far for
oh
putting
yeah,
people together.
with Captain Kirk and the
Yeah.
blues, yeah, fantastic stuff,
It,
yeah,
it was really good. That's it's fantastic, and I think the fact that your voice, and it's almost like if I was you, I would have been had. You must have had a couple good chuckles knowing when you came out and the record company and feeling the whole once you got the gold record and they're like trying to funnel you, and to do their rules, and now it's almost like falling away as you walk. As life's going, it just falls to the ground, and all these different things that you can do a record for here and you can do it for here. Like it's coming to you in the way that you are. Like finally, it
yes,
works the way it's working the way you do as an artist, and not them trying to make
yes,
you be the guy with the fire and follow their safe their dangerous safe package. You know what I mean? You're
yeah,
just a creative force now, and you're just picking what works now. And they're like musical exercises, sort of.
yes, and at the same time, obviously you're going forward,
Oh yeah,
and with this multimedia approach, which was, for instance, you mentioned the drum machine
yeah,
band in Kingdom Come. Uh, theirs was that was a multimedia performance, um, and so we're able to do it. All those ideas then, which we were able to do in the form of the technology of that day, they're still valid now. And so we're able to do them in a different uh, approach. And then where does that go? So it's still ongoing.
yep.
And you can, as a result, I can take things from the past and
Reshape it.
encapsulate them and say, yeah, well, what we were trying to do was this, and in those days you had that as a technology. Now look at it with this technology; it's the same thing, but look at it. That's what we were really aiming at, and that's a really wonderful feeling, you know.
It's exciting. It's, you know, and it's, I wonder how many people listen to your earlier stuff. We're talking about Kingdom Come just because we're talking about the multimedia and the thought process behind it.
Yeah.
Are now like in higher positions, like in Apple and Microsoft and creative spots, because that probably was the age and generation of that audience to really get that. Because, you know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at, I actually no. So 1972. I mean, you're thinking like the Doors and certain things. So not everyone's listening to Kingdom Come a little bit different. You know what I mean? So people that are wrapping their minds around that, I'm sure their brains continued on to bigger creative processes too. You know, I would love to, and I would love to hear some of these people be like, yeah, you know, and then I work, you know, doing this, you know, for Spielberg, or, you know what I'm saying? It's got to be,
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I'm saying? The footprint of what that did, or a seed even, you know what I mean? Clearly, I'd love to see that line. You know,
well,
wouldn't it be fun?
there's the project. There's the
Right?
project,
See, there you go. So that's all you probably did 5 projects while we were talking right now. You probably subconsciously created 5 more projects, right? That, you know, for release.
Yeah, it is a question though of you know, contextual thing that, for instance, with that Peruvian band,
Yeah.
they just came in and said, oh, we're so glad you like our music, because we wrote to them when we heard it. Would you like to do something? And so then they sent me the track, and I had to reconfigure how I was thinking at that time of music, and be like, wow, how do we go about this? You know, and
Exciting.
so it's always an alive process.
A
And
challenge.
yeah.
You've never
Well,
rested on your laurels. There are, well, I don't even think you have laurels. Do you know where they are? You know,
in the garden.
in the garden, right? There you go.
Yeah, yeah, because you know, like we've got a nice garden here, and I like watering it and watching everything grow, and vegetables. We've got peas, beans, carrots, beetroot. What have we got?
But nurturing, watering, growing, creating, it's all something you're still doing. It's still just a different manifestation of what you do. You
yeah,
know?
and how do you bring all of that together? I think a creative. It always struck me as something quite phenomenal that the very people that we were kind of using as models to take our music and put in a concert hall and have people come from their work and listen to this music inspired by people who went out and worked all day in the fields, came back, and for entertainment for themselves made this music, which,
right,
you know, and then we take it and make it into, oh, well, it's this form.
Yeah.
Or it's, you know, well, we're going to call it reggae. And now we've got, and so how to make your life and your music and your art and your all part of the same creative process. That's
the biggest challenge. How do you turn it off to take a break? Like, what is Arthur Brown like? What's like? And I say guilty. What is your fun not thinking movie or your fun not thinking book? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just to turn it off so you can be like, oh my god.
Well, I do like of the English ones, Doctor Who. I love
There we
that.
go.
Yeah, I like the obviously of the older ones, Monty Python, just as a way of standing everything on its head. Or
I can't watch anything still. I was watching the Vikings, and I'm still thinking of they're walking through, he's carrying them back. I'm thinking of a Monty Python sketch. I think it's like it has ruined any serious piece of anything. You know what I mean? It's seriously like I can't watch anything. And I love those movies. I watch all the time. I always still think of Monty Python because you know you quote him as a kid.
Yeah, and of course, you know, if I was born quite a while ago, and before that, there was the Goon Show, with Spike Milligan, Harry Seacombe,
Yeah.
and various other people who became very, popular. Harry Seacombe was at the one time a comic genius, but also was offered a career in the Covent Garden Opera, and so had his TV show where he'd come on and do Monty Python-esque things, but also sing opera and very beautifully too. And so that was it was because it was the only beginning of TV, and things were kind of different. And
But
yeah,
a young Arthur saw a guy who could do witty satirical things and also sing his butt off. It was already, you know, how could that escape your, you know,
maybe
your
I was,
appetite for learning?
maybe, yeah, that's it. Because I was young when I first started listening to the Goon Show.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to go look it up now because now you can find everything. I'm gonna go back and look it up.
And when you talk about things with flaming helmets and all of that
Yeah.
thing, there was a guy when I was young, and I was born on the English coast in a place called Whitby, which was where Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, and so there was this guy who used to come out in the 1920s swimsuit, which was very proper.
Yeah.
And he was also featured on the Matchbox front. That was Captain Webb was the picture, and he would come out onto the pier, which goes out into the ocean, and there would be a crowd who would come from all over England of maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people, which in those days was a big crowd, and he would stand on the end of the pier in his 1920s swimsuit, would take a cigarette, and you'd see it, and he'd do it mainly in the dark, but sometimes it would be during the day, and you'd see the glow off the end of his cigarette, and he would turn it round.
Oh, he did.
Put it in his mouth, still alight, and then he would dive. And he would dive into the water. It was quite a long way down, I don't know, 80 feet, something like that. And then he'd be under the water. And he'd stay there, and he'd stay there, and he'd stay there until people were going, oh, he must be dead. And then suddenly this hand would break the water, this head would break the water, this other hand would come over, mouth would open slightly. He was still alight, and he'd held his breath all this time. And
oh wow,
thousands of people would come to see him do it. Maybe today they wouldn't because there's so much stimulation.
I don't. To me, I'm already thinking like how do you discover that skill? It's a weird skill set. I mean, well, actually, you've done some living in Texas, so I can imagine somebody's doing something at a lake and they fall off the back of a boat with a cigarette, and that's maybe how it would get discovered. I'm not putting this thing out, trying to have a cigarette go out, and that's how it happened. But back then, I don't,
yeah,
quite a thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Maybe that had an influence on me and having flames coming out my head. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I think everything you do, I think that's what it is. You absorb, everything around you, and then you use it if you can, if it comes out, And luckily, and that's one of the gifts you have. Not only are you absorbing stuff, but you're using it at the right time. You know what I mean? Because if you didn't, you'd probably be locked up. If you use those things in the wrong time, the wrong places, you know what I mean? Like, what is wrong? It wouldn't be the crazy world. You would be in your own little room,
Yeah. And it does, of course, bring up the whole thing of censorship or no censorship. Well, particularly when it comes to children and stuff. Are you going to want them to watch all the ads that they're able to watch which in certain cases have been created. I remember there was one letter going around one of the big corporations said,
Mhm.
okay, we had a great year last year. We're going to make it even better this year. We're going to aim our main advertising at 1-year-old children
What?
because they will see a picture, they will hear a sound or a voice. That's it. The link is made. And once it's made on such a deep level because they're developing.
Yeah.
We've got them for life.
Did that company turn into Nazi Germany? I mean, like, who does that to babies? Like, how?
That's not Nazi Germany.
I know, but I'm saying but that is so devious. That is so morally corrupt.
Yeah.
You know.
And it is where a lot of our advertising goes. It's like, how do you maximize money? Well, you make sure that the person who pays you a bit of money will never not pay you a bit of money as soon as you put out a new product.
I would be so bad. I would be so bad at that. I'm like, I'm so not about money. You know. I'm just not. Not even the show. The show's about creativity. I'm not even driven by money. It's literally just about creativity. You know?
Well, yeah, you've got a great open approach to it. All I love it.
Well, it's honest. It's it's who I am. This has been a fantastic show. The first of probably, hopefully, many with Arthur. You just chipping away at the brain and all the projects he has going on. There's a lot going on, so we'll take it a piece of the pie at a time. But for now, we've enjoyed our talk and just a sampling, and hopefully the people are watching and start getting an idea of who he is. Go out or online or stream or go to his website. Yeah, take a minute. Let's go to the website. The website, great images. That's shirts from the website. He's got a ton of different really fun images. Some are in color, some are in black and white. It's kind of the tribal feel. Very cool. Hoodies, sweatshirts, mugs, and of course, all the great music's there. Everything's there. Take the time, learn them, understand them, because he'll be back. And everyone needs a point of reference in our conversations because we're going to talk about these other things. There's new projects. We might dip into some of his old stuff. And I clearly have a love of Kingdom Come, of his other stuff, and some of his other projects. To end that, do you have anything you want to say to wrap up tonight's show? Anything you want to touch base on?
No, just that. Yeah, it's been really enjoyable and opened up all sorts of things just by talking. Fantastic.
And that's what it is, isn't it? That's what it's all about, and that's what hopefully more people will do with you because you know.
Yeah,
you have so much. You're more than two lines on an album cover. You're like an encyclopedia set.
It's funny because in regards to that, I remember being really impressed and astonished when I heard, oh well, there's some bands that will say, I don't want you to take anything that I've put out, and there are other bands like the Grateful Dead who put out a radio show saying, these are the licks and the things we've come up with for the last 2 weeks. Please do what you like with them because our show's our show and we'll do what we do. But this is something for you, and that was just such an example to me of how open it can be.
Well, thank you. That's what it is. I mean, music has inspired me, and the artists have inspired me, and you're one of them. And so now it's me gathering all my favorite artists to continue what I've been inspired, from what you guys have done to me. Just keep sharing it, and hopefully more people will pick it up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what the goal is. I mean, just to keep sharing this, and and generationally, I want more people to be aware of who you are and so much you've done. There's so much great stuff out there to be inspired by. Look, if Bob Dylan can inspire punk rockers, Arthur Brown can inspire anything.
With at the time like this, when all the systems of dealing with things that we are encountering as human beings have come under question and have largely been found failing. We need that new visions constantly coming in to overturn what has become a kind of stalemate, and hopefully make sure we don't return to how it was.
Well, being generic, I think generalizing stuff and fostering hate or staying even the same. I only like this type of music, or I only like this, or vinyl's good, or anything. I'm just making it music oriented. But if we're in there, it's lazy and it's easy, and it just festers this hate and anger and cancer inside of you. But if you can be creative, it's going to force you to think, and it's going to be a little bit of work. But anything you've ever really worked for, most things are really worth it. And
Yes.
when the more you do it, you keep doing it because it's an endorphin of feeling good, and it's a good feeling good. It's not one of the bad feelings of good, that you're beating up on somebody for something. And that's really what we need to do. And this technology can allow it on some level. It's been awful on a level, but everything that's bad can be good if you use it the right way.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
The fact that you and I can have this conversation from sort of different planes and different parts of the world and different everything, but yet we are quite in the same plane right now.
Yeah.
But on paper we're not. You know what I'm saying? And this has allowed that, and that's once again another piece of how we can move forward with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some heavy stuff. I need a nap after talking to you, man. I'm so all this thinking.
I'm going to pluck a piece of chard from the garden.
I'm going to go lay out in the pool and just ruminate everything I heard and probably put on some more of your tunes. I think it's going to be a Zim Zam afternoon for me in the pool is what it's going to be today. People, it's great. It's Arthur Brown. Thank you for being on the show, and we will see you again soon. All right, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.